Whitney, welcome to the World Massage Conference. It's great to have you here this year.
Thank you very much, Melanie. It's great to be a part of this on the kickoff day for the World Massage Conference as well. So I'd like to just welcome everybody else who's joining us on the call from wherever you're calling in from today and listening to us. We're going to talk about clinical reasoning today, and this is a topic that I think doesn't get a great deal of attention in our field, and it's something that I feel is particularly important and relevant for any clinical practitioner who's working with pain and injury problems. And even if that's not a prime part of your focus, I think as we go through the presentation today, everybody will see that the clinical reasoning is really a part of whatever you do in whatever type of environment that you're working in. And paying some attention to enhancing those clinical reasoning skills can go a long way to enhancing and improving your practice. So I'd like to begin with sort of getting some definitions and clarifications about what clinical reasoning really is. So if we move on to the first slide, we'll talk a little bit here about what clinical reasoning actually is. I like to think of this as kind of a four-step process or a four-component process of what clinical reasoning is composed of. Whenever you are faced with any type of clinical situation or problem that you're going to be addressing, you have to first off consider what the information is that particular problem is based on. So you as a clinician are taking in information about the client's case, matching that with what you understand about anatomy, physiology, and kinesiology. And that foundational knowledge is going to be sort of the groundwork that helps you put together a plan or an idea about what you're facing with a particular type of clinical problem. Because when any person comes in to see you, essentially, each client is presenting a unique type of clinical problem that you're having to work with. It might be something that's very easy, like somebody just wants general relaxation or stress reduction, or it could be something that's relatively complex, like a person coming in with a very significant pain or injury problem, and you've got to figure out what the nature of that problem is and how you should go about treating it, or in many cases, if you even should go about treating it. So when the person comes in, your first step is really take in that information and put together as much as you can about what is the component parts of the kinesiology that you need to know, the anatomy that you need to know, an understanding of pathological conditions. All of that is what we consider the sort of foundational knowledge that you take in at the outset. If we move to the next step on the next slide, we'll see moving up a step in that ladder is the process, what we consider developing a hypothesis. And this sounds kind of like the whole scientific method of gathering information and developing a hypothesis, and it is to some degree. What we're doing here is taking the information that we have and beginning to put together ideas about how we should address this particular situation. So we're using our foundational knowledge, our experience that's put together by our learning and the clinical experiences that we've had before, and we come up with an idea of what we want to do in addressing this particular type of situation. And so then we'll move up the ladder one more step. In our next slide, you'll see that the next step is for us to test that hypothesis. And hopefully our hypothesis for a clinical situation is based on some good groundwork of either research-based information or experiential knowledge and previous experiences, that if you have a client with this particular type of disorder, let's say a lateral epicondylitis or something like that, you've treated a person with this kind of thing before. You're using your experience and your previous clinical activities and experiences to say, well, if I do this worked before, I'm going to do the same sort of thing again. I'm going to test a hypothesis with this particular person and assume it's going to work. And hopefully, in most cases, that will work the way you have it planned. But sometimes that doesn't always occur. And when we get to the last step of the process here on the next slide, you'll see we'll have a situation where we might need to take what we've currently built and refine those clinical actions. We might need to refine our hypothesis. So we'll take all that information, and based on what we get, we will choose how we're going to adapt and change our clinical working environment for what that particular person is experiencing. So what we have here is a staged and stepped process that determines how we go about making clinical decisions. And again, this is something that is not taught very well in most of our massage education programs, and even in a lot of the continuing education programs. I'm going to speak about this a good bit during the day, during our presentation here too, about the emphasis that is in so many of the different courses